Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. And my extraordinary person of age today, my guest, is Bobby Brickman. Welcome, Bobby. I'm so glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Bobby, you're going to be talking to us about something that not all of us are going to experience, but we need to know your experience of it. So I think we'll just kind of dive in and let you tell people your story, okay?
Sounds good to me. And I think that the story you're referring to is largely the fact that I had a liver transplant a little over 20 years ago. And I'm in pretty good health today. I'm extremely grateful for that. And it was a long road that led me to needing a liver transplant, being extraordinarily ill for about a year, getting the transplant, and my recovery, which I think has been remarkable.
Well, take us down that road a little bit, Bobby. Tell us how you got to the point that that liver of yours wasn't working anymore.
Okay. So uh, I had a disease called hepatitis C. Hepatitis means liver disease, and hepatitis C specifically is a virus. The way one gets that virus is it's blood-borne. In my particular case, I believe I got it one night in my senior year of college when I had three roommates, and it was the late 60s, and we were all very psychedelic back in those days. Uh, However, one of my roommates really took it beyond that, and he became a needle user. And he used to ask if he could inject me with drugs frequently, and I always turned him down. I really kind of in the back of my mind knew I did not want to go that far. And one night I was sufficiently out of my mind that I said, okay, just this once. And as he injected me with some drugs, I had this thought come into my mind, Bob, you're doing something really stupid. But it was done, and I moved on with my life. Fast forward, I suffered with a drinking and drug problem for many, many years. And at the age of 34, I was really had at my wit's end, and I was willing to ask for help. Before that, I always thought I will be able to control and enjoy and overcome anything. I was wrong. My drinking and drug problem was more powerful than my will, and I asked for help, and I got the help that I needed, and I've been clean and sober for 40 years now. And one of the ways in which I stay clean and sober is I help other people with that kind of problem. However, at 7 years sober, in my early 40s, I got diagnosed with hepatitis C. I had never heard of it at that point, and my doctor told me a little bit about it. He said it's a blood-borne disease. Um, that about 70% of the people who get it will never be seriously affected, and about 30% of the people who get it are going to either get cirrhosis of the liver or perhaps liver cancer. He said the best way to ensure continued good health is to not do things that will harm the liver. And I wasn't. And I thought to myself, oh, I'll be one of those 70% that never gets affected. I am by nature an optimist, and I just happened to be wrong. And I woke up in the middle of the night on my 54th birthday. That was September 17th, 2003. I woke up in the middle of the night, extremely ill, high fever, puking my guts out. And the next day I felt worse. And the following day I felt worse than that. I was really, really sick. And I called a friend of mine in my neighborhood in New York and said, please take me to the emergency room. And he did. And they admitted me to the hospital and they said, your liver has shut down. It has slowly and quietly gone to complete and total cirrhosis. And you're going to need a liver transplant. He said, we don't do that here. It was a neighborhood hospital. You need to check yourself out. AMA, which is against medical advice, because we can't legitimately discharge you, and then go to a medical center in New York where there are liver transplants. And I had a liver doctor who had been checking on me periodically. And anyway, I went to that hospital. I was admitted. I was there for 2 weeks and I was stabilized. And I was told I needed to get on the liver transplant list. So I then applied to get on the liver transplant list. And it's a procedure. They want to make sure that if they give you this really precious commodity of a liver that quite a few people need, uh, that you're not going to abuse it and that it is going to be a worthwhile use of this precious commodity. So, uh, first question they asked me when I applied to get on the list, do you use drugs or do you drink? I said, I'm 19 years clean and sober. They said, okay, we can proceed. And then they check to see that your other vital organs are strong enough that you'll survive a liver transplant. They check your heart, they check your lungs, they give you a psychological evaluation. And I got on the liver transplant list. And they told me in New York they had the longest waiting list in the country. There were 7 regions, I believe there still are 7 regions through which organ donation is administered. New York's region was had the longest waiting list. And they allocate livers based upon how sick you are. And there are scientific measures based on blood work as to how sick you are. It's called a MELD score, and it measures certain aspects of the liver disease based on numbers from blood tests. And I moved up that scale over the course of a year. I was hospitalized 6 times that year. One of the symptoms of end-stage liver disease are, I'll describe some of them. One of the main ones that affected me tremendously was I lapsed into comas. And the reason you lapse into a coma is the liver cleanses toxins out of the body. My liver was not doing that. So one of the toxins that it was failing to cleanse is ammonia. Ammonia lodges in the brain, clouds it up so that you become first foggy and then in what's called a blackout. and then a coma, and then you die. There's a medicine that can be administered to help keep the ammonia level low and to take it out of the body. And it is this awful tasting liquid called lactulose. It tastes terrible. And the way it effectively removes ammonia is it gives you diarrhea. And it is uncontrollable diarrhea. And it comes on at a moment's notice. And it was very unpleasant. Nonetheless, it keeps you alive. And, but sometimes even this medicine isn't enough to really do the trick. And so I would lapse into comas periodically. My driving privileges were taken away. I could end up at a moment's notice, not knowing where I am. I had tremendous help. I could not take care of myself during this year. Uh, I needed a large amount of help. At that point, I was living alone. I have an older sister who said, whatever it takes, I will do to help you survive until you get your liver transplant. And I moved in with her for periods of time when I could not take care of myself. And then when there were periods of, she was working, and there were periods where she was unable to be helpful to me, and I needed to find other help to take care of myself. Um, I had two ex-wives living in Los Angeles. As a result of my years of recovery from alcoholism, I had reconnected with them, and I was on friendly terms with them. And I called both of them, and I said, "Is there any chance that you can take some time off and come to New York and just take care of me for a week or 10 days? I'm trying to line up people who can take care of me." And both of them said, "Absolutely, we're there." Um, Extraordinary, really extraordinary. I had friends I grew up with in New York that I had known all my life since 2 or 3 years old. They helped me out tremendously. They went to the store and bought my groceries. They went to the drugstore and picked up my medications. They drove me to appointments. I needed all of this help. You know, there's a saying about it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I was a helpless child for that year. Uh, what ultimately happened was I also uh, signed up to be willing to accept a less than perfect liver. There is the A list, transplant list, and a B list. And the B list is it's a liver much, much better than yours, but it may be injured, but it'll buy you time, maybe lots of time. And I said, I'm willing. I was so sick. And the real question really was, what's going to happen first? A liver transplant or death? And one of the things that sustained me was there were a number of things. For one thing, I thought to myself during this year, I should be really scared. And my energy level was so low, I didn't have the energy to be afraid. And that served me well. Another thing that served me well was I had developed a faith over the course of my sobriety, a faith that, well, this is exactly how it manifested. I just came up, something deep inside me said, Bob, this is not your time. Your destiny is to overcome this. There are liver transplants and you're going to get one and you're going to be okay again. You are destined to live out a long life. And somehow deep inside, I believed that. I just, now I could have been wrong. It turns out I wasn't. So I was blessed by that sense of belief. And I will tell you this, I have worked with some men a couple of times since my transplant who needed transplants. And the two that come to mind, both were so extraordinarily afraid and uh, really had no sense of optimism. And we lost both of them. And I can't say how much a sense of faith and optimism plays a part, but I think it plays a significant part. And I was blessed with that. And, so here I am. What ultimately happened was this. I got a phone call on Sunday night, September 5th, 2004, a year after my liver failed, from my surgeon at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, saying, "We think we have a liver for you. It is down in Baltimore. There is a man on life support who is never going to wake up, and his family has agreed to pull the plug and to donate his organs. We'd like to give his liver to you. We're ready to fly a team down to Baltimore and examine the liver. And if it's any good, we'd like to put it in you. Are you ready?" I said, yes. This was about 9 o'clock Sunday night. And they said, all right, get to the hospital. We'll call you in the middle of the night and let you know if it's a go. So, one interesting thing about that was I knew that former President Clinton was a patient in at Columbia Presbyterian and was going to have his quadruple bypass the next morning. It was on the news in New York. And I looked terrible, having been sick for a year. And I'm showing up with a small suitcase at about midnight at Columbia Presbyterian. And I do have that ammonia running through my brain. And I'm thinking to myself, the Secret Service is going to think I'm dangerous. I better be really careful when I show up at the hospital. I remember thinking this. It's just a little bit nuts. And but I showed up and I went to the appointed place and I did not get into any trouble. And at I got the phone call that it's a go. Um, so at about 7 a.m. on Monday, Labor Day, September 6th, 2004, I got wheeled into the operating room for my liver transplant. I remember as they wheeled me in, me thinking to myself, God, I would really like to wake up. And the next thing I knew, it was Wednesday afternoon. I'm in ICU with tubes everywhere, but I'm awake and I'm alive. Um, I was 2 weeks in the hospital. Um, I was when I was discharged, I went to my sister's house just to be have some supervision for another couple of weeks. And a month after the transplant, I was home and I was starting my life over and building my strength. And after a few months, I joined the gym. Um, I literally had no complications. I'm an extremely blessed person. And I'll tell you one of, you would it was there were a lot of downsides to this. First of all, I couldn't work for that year leading up to it. They told me that when I had really fully regained my strength, that I would have to do a treatment for hepatitis C, which was still in my blood and was going to destroy my new liver even faster because I'm taking immunosuppressant drugs, drugs that suppress my immune system, so that my immune system does not see this foreign object, this new liver, and say, "What's that? Let's attack it. That doesn't belong here." So you suppress your immune system. Um, but once I got strong, they said in about 2 years, complete recovery, you're going to have to do a year of interferon. That was something I had avoided doing, thinking that I'm going to be one of the 70% that never has his liver destroyed. Interferon was the only solution for hepatitis C back at that time, 20 years ago. And it was a 1 year treatment. It was about 25% effective in curing hepatitis C, 75% failure rate, which is one of the reasons I had avoided it. But they said you have to do it. So, I had been taken out of my career. Um, I did work briefly, but then I had to stop to do the interferon. Interferon makes a person anemic. It generally causes depression. It makes you weak. Uh, you don't feel well. Uh, but I did it and I got cured of my hepatitis C. I have no hepatitis C.
So, Bobby, I love listening to your story. I just have to jump in and say you're a double miracle. I mean, the recovery from alcoholism, that's a terminal disease. And in general, people tend to think that the natural state of an alcoholic is to get sober. That's not the natural state of an alcoholic. The natural state of an alcoholic is to get sicker and sicker and die of what is a terminal and incurable disease. And some of us realize that the recovery from alcoholism is basically a spiritual recovery, that's what works. It's not something that you can take as a pill or whatever and the alcoholism goes away. There has to be this utter reliance on a higher power. So there's the first miracle. And then the second miracle is that you came through this liver transplant and responded to this medication to take care of the hepatitis C. Wow. And I have a feeling there's more coming, more miracles. Yes.
Well, I guess so. So I am cured of hepatitis C. That just phenomenal. And let me just say what I think you could call it a miracle, but really a great outcome for me of all of this is despite the hardship that I went through, uh, my gratitude for just being alive has been deepened extraordinarily. I don't take it for granted. I'm here. I get to participate. Um, there are, definite uh, problems that were created. The whole process was about a 5 year process with the a year of interferon plus the year of waiting for the transplant plus the few years in between. Um, it was expensive, very expensive. Nonetheless, I get to be here, and that's extraordinary. And I had another really great thing, uh, I have been taught that one of the great values in life is to give back. That's what makes our lives valuable, what we can contribute. And I got approached one day. I met a man, an acquaintance, and I told him briefly my story, and he said, and this was just such a coincidence, or you can call it a coincidence. He said, I serve on the board of directors of the American Liver Foundation. We could use somebody like you on the board. And I was recruited and I joined the board of directors of the American Liver Foundation of Greater Los Angeles. And they elected me to be their representative to the National Board of Directors, which I served on for 5 years. what an extraordinary privilege to help shape policy so that liver transplantation can be provided more easily all around the country. Uh, it was a privilege for me, and you know, I received an incredible gift. I'm really very, very pleased to have been able to give back a little something because of that.
You know, Bobby, I left out one of the miracles, which is that you have two ex-wives who were so willing to come and be of service to you when you needed it. That's not usually, or very commonly, I guess I should say, not two ex-wives, maybe one out of two, but both to say, oh yes, I'll be there, I'll help. I think that too is a measure of recovery, that change of heart, that comes about. That's so beautiful. And then, as you say, to be able to use this experience, which was arduous to go through, turn around and turn it into service again, give back, and the rewards that come from that. Because I
Yeah,
think those are some of the greatest rewards we ever reap. When we give, it just feels so good. Who knows who gets the most? I know when I'm giving, I end up feeling, I know how good I feel. I don't know how much
yeah.
help I'm doing out there, but oh my gosh, what it does for my heart is amazing. So you've had quite a journey and um, quite a path. And it seems ultimately so worthwhile. I mean, worth all the suffering. Am I right?
I had before we turned the cameras on, I told you I have no complaints. And the fact of the matter is, uh, I am extremely grateful, and I wouldn't change anything. I've had an interesting life. There have been challenges, but I wouldn't trade my life for somebody else's. Sitting here today, right now, I'm a healthy man. Um, I have, I still am in touch with many, many people that I've known since childhood. And a number of them are facing health issues. I'm able to give them a little bit of encouragement, and they have me as an example of somebody who has overcome extraordinary health challenges. And I have no bitterness. I really don't. I'm responsible I actually created that illness. And I also contributed toward the recovery. I also had extraordinary help along the way, and I'm very grateful for that help. And you know, it is. I had good medical personnel. I had good friends. I had good family. I had good ex-wives. They like to be called former wives for some reason. And I'll tell one quick story about my second former wife. We didn't talk for about 3 years, and I ran into her, and I didn't know what I was going to say. I had not seen her in 3 years, and I ran into her, and what came out of my mouth was unplanned. It was an amends, a verbal amends, an apology for my part in what had created a marriage that didn't work. She gave me a hug, and 3 years of resentment and animosity melted away, and we became friends, and not just kind of friends in name, but genuine. Uh, and we help each other out. And I care about this person. And the form of the relationship changed, but the caring is back. And I love my life.
You know, Bobby, that's my experience too. My first husband and I, when we split up, I didn't speak to him for 10 years. And I had a lot of bitterness and resentment, but I did something I'd learned from other people. I prayed for his highest good every night. And sometimes I did it with gritted teeth, but I did it He is probably my very best friend today. He has the most wonderful marriage. He and his wife are so beautifully matched. They just get along. They laugh all the time. And I'm happy for him and I'm happy for her. I feel like they're a gift in each other's lives, and they're both a gift in my life. I didn't expect that. That's one of my miracles. And I know when you tell that story that that's another one of your miracles.
Yeah.
That beautiful healing that you can't expect. I mean, it's not.
No,
Yeah.
no, they're gifts.
Mhm.
If we are open to possibilities and to doing the right thing and really caring about our fellow travelers, we can have these great healings that enrich us.
Yeah.
And clearly you're somebody who has had those experiences too.
And I know that, they're by grace, but not by accident, because
Yeah.
you have to work for them. You have to be willing, even if you can't make it happen, be willing to let go of those resentments, let go of that bitterness, and let something bigger than you are heal it. And that's my experience of it. It sounds like it's yours too.
Yeah.
Bobby, I can't thank you enough. I know, again, I'm going to say that not all of us are going to have to go through the thing that you've gone through, this experience of having a liver transplant. But whatever we go through, we can use our experience, strength, and hope as an offering to other people who are having similar struggles. And that's a great gift to give back to the world. And you're a great example of that. So thank you for being my guest today so much.
Thanks for inviting me,
Yeah.
Robin. I really appreciate it. I'm honored.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you, all of you who are listening and watching. Come back and see us next time. Bye. Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.